One early morning, Shinichi, a high school nerd, was abruptly awakened by an unfamiliar voice claiming, "It has failed." Groggily looking around, he found no one in his room. Shaking off the odd incident, he dressed for school and headed downstairs for breakfast. His parents mentioned his strange behavior the previous night, but he had no recollection of it. On his way to school, his longtime friend, Satomi Murano, playfully snuck up behind him to surprise him with a chop to the back. Unexpectedly, Shinichi's right hand moved involuntarily, catching her hand midair. The situation escalated awkwardly when his right hand then grabbed her left breast without any shame. Mortified, Shinichi couldn't avoid the slap that followed. This bizarre behavior continued throughout the school day. Even during class, his right hand scrolled through his phone while he was asleep. Flashback to the previous night, Shinichi was asleep with his earphones on, listening to music. A parasite attempted to enter his brain, but with his ears blocked by the earphones, it sought another entry point. The parasite then tried to enter through his nose, but Shinichi sneezed forcefully, expelling it. Now awake, Shinichi armed himself with a notebook as the parasite launched another attack, this time entering his right hand. In a desperate move, he tied his earphone cable around his arm, stopping the parasite's advance to his brain. Back in the present, Shinichi's teacher confiscated his phone, reprimanding him. Deciding to leave school early, Shinichi witnessed a little girl about to be hit by a speeding car. Instinctively, he shielded her, and his right hand demolished the car's bumper. To his shock, an eye emerged on his right hand. Frantic, he sprinted home, locked himself in his room, and attempted to stab his right hand. The parasite, revealing its form, stopped the knife. This sent Shinichi into a deeper panic. Searching online for answers about a talking right hand proved futile. Unable to sleep, Shinichi watched as his right hand read about fish. The parasite introduced itself, explaining it had no record in any biology books and could no longer take over Shinichi's brain. With no choice but to cooperate, they attempted to rest. The next day, they encountered a dog whose brain had been taken over by a parasite. The dog sprouted wings and chased them, but the situation was quickly resolved when the parasite in Shinichi's hand penetrated the dog's chest, killing it by crushing its heart. Realizing this was the only way to kill a parasite-infected being, Shinichi washed his right hand and headed to school. In class, Shinichi asked the parasite what to call it, and it named itself Miji. Satomi, still upset from the morning's incident, apologized after PE, and they agreed to go out for pancakes. However, the romantic tension between them drove another student to confront Shinichi outside. The bully started beating him, and although Shinichi could have used Miji to defend himself, he didn't want to harm his classmate. Miji, however, landed a single blow, sending the bully flying. Afterwards, Shinichi learned from Yuko about the gruesome, mincemeat murders reported worldwide. Torn about whether to intervene, Shinichi found himself at odds with Miji, who wanted to avoid dangerous situations. Despite the turmoil, even so, Shinichi and Miji soon encounter another human-hosted parasite who calls himself Mr. B. Impressed by Miji's abilities, B offers his own right hand to Miji, even chopping off his arm to make space. However, Miji swiftly dismembers Mr. B into multiple pieces, killing him. The next day, Shinichi has his long-awaited pancake date with Satomi. It's awkward, as Shinichi's mind is preoccupied, and his appetite and manners have noticeably changed. When he goes to school again, he senses another parasite in the building. At the assembly, the school introduces a new math teacher named Ryoko, who is the parasite Shinichi had sensed. Ryoko, in turn, can sense Miji's presence within Shinichi. Shinichi visits Ryoko's office to confront her. She reassures him, suggesting there's no need for tension and proposes meeting at a different location after school. They meet at a cafe, where Ryoko introduces another parasite, Mr. A. She reveals that despite both being parasites, she has conceived a normal human baby with another parasite. Ryoko asserts that there's no reason for hostility between them, but warns Shinichi that if he poses a threat, she can kill an entire classroom in seconds. The following day, during math class, both Shinichi and Ryoko sense the presence of another parasite entering the building. It's Mr. A, who immediately starts a rampage, causing chaos and bloodshed. Students and teachers are slaughtered, creating a scene of utter carnage. Shinichi is naturally concerned, But Miji's plan involves using the other students as distractions while sneaking up on Mr. A, refusing to sacrifice his classmates. Shinichi sets up a barricade of tables in an empty hallway on an upper floor to lure Mr. A in. The plan works, and Mr. A arrives, ready to fight. Miji counters Mr. A's attacks while Shinichi inches closer, using the tip of a chair leg to stab Mr. A in the heart. Despite this, Mr. A barely survives, stumbling towards Ryoko's office in a last-ditch effort to merge with her. Instead, he is met with gas explosives set by Ryoko, which incinerate him. After the school reopens, Ryoko quits her job to avoid suspicion. Before leaving, she talks to Shinichi behind the building. When he asks why parasites need to devour humans, Ryoko explains it's their primal nature. She mentions that Shinichi's body is gradually changing and admits she considered killing him but chose not to. Meanwhile, Shinichi's parents inform him about their trip to the countryside. Initially worried, he lets them go, reassured by Miji's assessment that parasites are less likely to be in rural areas. Shinichi later encounters the boy who had previously fought him after the basketball game, being beaten by a gang. Shinichi tries to defend him but is overpowered without Miji's help. Kana, the gang leader's girlfriend, intervenes, sensing something unusual about Shinichi. She confirms her suspicions by looking into his eyes, recognizing something inhuman within him. Kana later confronts Shinichi again while he is with Satomi, but he ignores her and walks away. Kana's boyfriend, Mitsuha, grows jealous of Shinichi and not only attacks him but also kidnaps Satomi. However, the boy Shinichi saved earlier rallies a large group of students to confront the gang, resulting in a massive brawl that ultimately saves Shinichi and Satomi. During this tumultuous period, Shinichi's parents are enjoying a sunset in the countryside when a parasite sneaks up behind them. In a horrifying moment, Shinichi's mother is beheaded right in front of his father. Shinichi's father, despite being taken over by the parasite, somehow survives and manages to call Shinichi before losing consciousness. Though too injured to speak properly, the call fills Shinichi with overwhelming anxiety. As he waits for more news, a parasite arrives at his doorstep. Although Shinichi recognizes it as a parasite, he struggles to accept the reality. The parasite, not playing any games, tells him that it will ensure his father is dead. Shinichi recalls memories of his mother's self-sacrificing nature, but before he can react, the parasite pierces his heart, leaving him lifeless on the floor. Under ordinary circumstances, Shinichi would have died. However, Miji, his parasite partner, keeps him alive by relocating itself to function as his heart and repairing the damage. This process takes an entire day, and when Shinichi finally wakes up, he notices significant changes in his body. He no longer needs glasses, and his personality and mentality have shifted dramatically due to the trauma he experienced. Determined to protect his father and avenge his mother, Shinichi travels to the hospital where his father is staying. He knows another attack is inevitable and is resolved to kill the parasite that took over his mother. Seeing his father in a tragic mental state overwhelms Shinichi with grief, but he cannot shed tears. To stay close in case of another attack, Shinichi checks into a nearby inn. Miji explains a new weakness. It must sleep for 4 hours daily, during which it cannot sense other parasites. This leaves them vulnerable. The next day, Shinichi and Miji confront another parasite at the coast, where they meet Mamoru Uda, a person whose jaw has turned into a parasite. Sympathetic to Uda's situation, Shinichi forms an alliance with him to share information and support each other. That night, Shinichi ponders his newfound superhuman abilities. Miji reveals that 30% of its body mass circulates through Shinichi's body, enhancing his combat skills. Shortly after, Uda calls Shinichi, informing him that the parasite he seeks is nearby. Shinichi rushes to the scene, but Miji falls asleep just before the confrontation. Nonetheless, Miji transforms into a blade so Shinichi can defend himself. When Shinichi arrives, Uda is seemingly killed by the parasite, falling off a cliff. Despite Miji being asleep, Shinichi's enhanced senses allow him to evade and attack the parasite effectively. He creates an opportunity to strike, but memories of his mother cause him to hesitate. Unexpectedly, Uda's jaw parasite stabs and kills the enemy from behind. Days later, Kana's boyfriend, Mitsuha, picks another fight with Shinichi. This time, Shinichi effortlessly humiliates Mitsuha, leaving Satomi stunned when she sees Mitsuha on the ground and Shinichi seemingly untouched. The next day, Shinichi finds an almost dead dog on the road. He takes it to a park to let it die peacefully. Satomi, encountering Shinichi there, feels relieved by his care for the dog, thinking he hasn't changed. However, when the dog dies, Shinichi casually throws it in the trash, horrifying Satomi. A new transfer student named Shimada joins Shinichi's class, sent by Ryoko to monitor him. Shimada assures Shinichi and Miji that he and Ryoko are seeking ways to survive without eating humans. Shimada himself claims he doesn't consume them. Kana mistakes Shimada's presence for Shinichi's, while Yuko develops a crush on Shimada. Kana's supposed boyfriend, Mitsuha, tries confronting Shimada after seeing Kana interact with him, but gets beaten nearly to death in a bathroom. Mitsuha then rallies his gang to go after Shimada. Shinichi arrives just in time to prevent Shimada from causing a bloodbath, stopping the confrontation before it escalates. Shinichi intimidates the gang, warning them to never go after Shimada again. However, Shinichi's personality has become a shadow of its former self, with his mental resilience unstable. When Satomi tries to talk to him about it, he harshly tells her to shut up. Meanwhile, a girl named Yuko stalks Shimada after school and witnesses him change his face, realizing he's a parasite. The next day at school, Yuko confronts Shimada alone. Knowing she is now a threat, Shimada prepares to kill her. Miji alerts Shinichi to Shimada's killing intent, prompting him to leave the classroom and intervene. Yuko narrowly avoids one of Shimada's strikes and throws a toxic chemical at him, causing serious damage. She uses the opportunity to jump out of a window into a tree. Shimada becomes unstable and starts killing students indiscriminately. As the school evacuates, Shinichi realizes Satomi's class is missing. He rushes back into the building, finding a floor littered with disfigured corpses, causing him emotional turmoil. Nevertheless, he perseveres and finds Satomi and two other students hiding. The two students run off to their deaths, but Shinichi saves Satomi, jumping out of the window with her, revealing his superhuman abilities. Shimada continues his rampage even as the police arrive, their guns ineffective against the parasite. Shinichi decides to climb to the roof of a nearby building to stay undetected. When Shimada appears on the school roof, Shinichi combines his strength with Miji's, throwing a rock powerful enough to pierce Shimada's heart. Satomi later thanks Shinichi, and they reconcile. The next morning, Kana meets Shinichi and walks with him, but he lashes out, warning her never to approach him if she senses his presence. On a date with Satomi, Shinichi has a strong emotional reaction to a noisy child, conflicted about his humanity. Despite his changes, his feelings for Satomi remain, and they share a tender kiss. Kana witnesses this and leaves heartbroken. That night, Kana senses a presence and wonders if it's Shinichi, but it's another person. She receives a text from Shinichi about meeting the next day. They go to an abandoned building where Shinichi reveals everything about the parasites, despite Miji's advice against it. Kana leaves, telling him she can distinguish him from other parasites. Walking home with Satomi, Shinichi fails to notice Kana nearby, causing her to question why he can't sense her as she senses him. Miji explains this to Shinichi later, indicating other parasites might also sense her. Concerned, Shinichi cancels a date with Satomi to meet Kana and show her his powers, instructing her on safety, but she ignores his advice, leaving her phone at home and setting out to prove herself. Kana enters a building, mistaking a parasite for Shinichi. She witnesses the parasite eating human organs and tries to run, believing Shinichi will save her. He arrives too late, finding Kana's heart pierced by the parasite. Devastated, Shinichi asks Miji to handle defense while he attacks the parasite, effortlessly killing it. Holding Kana, Miji tells him she cannot be saved. Kana expresses her feelings for Shinichi before dying, her death leaving him wondering if he's still human. Later, Mitsuha blames Shinichi for Kana's death, infuriated by Shinichi's lack of emotion. He attacks Shinichi, who retaliates, admitting Mitsuha is right about him not being human. Walking into a forest, Shinichi questions his calmness but finds comfort in the sight of his red blood after repeatedly slamming his head against a tree.